And welcome to our Unreal Editor for Fortnite Build Along show. Sit back, relax, and build with us. I am your host, Tina, and today with me I have our three wonderful builders today. We have Josh, Christian, and Evan. I'll go through and have each of them tell us just a little bit about themselves, get us all warmed up here. Christian, let's go ahead and start with you. Who are you? Why are you
What's up,
here? Let
guys?
us know about you.
It's Christian here. You might have caught me on the last stream. I just joined Epic recently on the creator evangelism team. And I'm here with Josh and Evan to build a little dungeon crawler with you today. I'll throw it over to Josh.
Yeah, hey guys. You might recognize me. I'm Josh. I'm also an evangelist at Epic Games here, working in UEFN, and we're Christian and I are welcome to introduce Evan here, who's our guest on this stream today, coming with us from the Docs team. He's a verse guru, and he's helped us a lot with learning scene graph, and hopefully he can help today too.
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm Evan. I'm from the Docs and Learning team. Here today to talk to you about cool stuff you can make in Scene Graph. Maybe, show off a little verse code.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Very, very exciting. I'm gonna just hand it over to y'all because I know there's a lot to dig into today. But before we get started, just want to go through the usual rigmarole, letting everyone know that, of course, if you have questions while we're going through and this is being built, please post them in the comments there, and I will pepper our poor builders with them while they're trying very hard to focus and get things done, just to throw a wrench into things. So with that in mind, please don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're here for, to learn and build stuff together. So I'll hand it over to y'all. What are we doing?
Yeah. So Christian, Evan, and I, we kind of sat down a couple weeks ago, and we knew we really wanted to do a scene graph live stream, because we came in a beta not too long ago, and there's been a lot of talk about scene graph, and I know there's also been like a lot of like hesitation from creators on adoption and whether to convert projects or start new ones with it, and how to best use it and implement it into games. And so we kind of came together and we're brainstorming how we should go about doing a scene graph build along where we're like using it live, because we really want to show how it's actually used in practice, because we talk about the theory a lot and the future of it, but it is also in a state right now to be used. And so that's what we want to do. So we thought one of the major strengths of scene graph is obviously the prefab system, and being able to dynamically spawn and randomize prefabs and group entities at runtime. And so we thought, what better way to kind of show that off than to do like a dungeon crawler kind of dungeon randomization system. And so Evan's built this like master system for us that we're gonna like dive into and implement later on in the stream. But we're gonna get started on my side of things. I'll share my screen here, and we're gonna get started with building out a room that we'll implement into Evan's system. So you'll see this is kind of where we've been jamming on existing rooms so far. Let me grab this prefab here. So this is what we're working with right now. Just a 3x3 room, and we've got a door on each side. This open door is where we'll have players spawn in from, and then the three other doors they can open, and the idea is that a new room is generated on the other side, and so they can just run on forever going through these rooms, and then we're going to try to spawn enemies each time they come in, and that'll be the general flow here. Yeah, I guess some things to note. I'm going to duplicate this and kind of just go ham, customizing it, showing off like how to build a hierarchy. I'm still learning like the best way to go about grouping entities, and what's fastest and what makes the most sense for this system. And so I guess have patience with me as I'm building hierarchies. It's a brand new system, and it is a lot different to what like you guys are probably used to as UEFN or UE devs. So Yeah, work with me on that. The only things that really have to stay the same here is the general like shape of the room based on the system that Evan's made, and then where these doors are placed. But everything else we can kind of customize ourselves.
So
Am I
Josh,
missing
what's been the
anything?
biggest difference for you, like building normally versus like building in scene graph?
um, I've learned I have to be a lot a lot more intentional when I'm like working in scene graph with like I said, like how things are laid out in the hierarchy, but also like where things are placed, like in the world here, like their translation and rotation and those numbers I'm using. Like Evan kept getting very frustrated with me because I'd have walls placed at like 166.547, like whatever. And he's like, why is it right there? And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of dragged it like over there. And that's how I'm used to working, is like just kind of throwing stuff and kit bashing it. And as long as it's playable, like that's kind of what it works. But when you're dealing with scene graph, you're building out like these hierarchies full of entities and group entities and components and stuff. It does actually like matter a lot where things are and the math behind it. So that's been a big learning curve for me. And also like naming things. You'll see in our hierarchy here, I haven't been the best with naming things. Also, we're like working on quality of life updates to naming things right now, because I mean there are some issues with duplicating components or duplicating entities, and those entities just reverting back to the name entity. And so I kind of worked faster rather than like detailed. But I recommend like being intentional with how you're naming things, because it does help, especially when you're working with the team.
That's interesting. So it is like there's definitely a mentality shift when it comes to building through this pipeline, is what I'm hearing.
100%. And there's a lot of things that are easier, and where like I've gone like, oh, it's really great that this is an entity and I can just swap this out and it'll keep its location and it's like super quick. I'm just dragging, dropping from the content browser that I've loved. But there's also been things where it's like total like shift, and maybe feels a little slower than some other UE workflows. The good news is like that's not intentional. We're just still building the product, and the overall goal is that like it is much faster. So, if you guys are experiencing that and have feedback, I know our scene graph team would love for it to go in the forums, and they can keep track of it there.
Yeah, as an organization freak, the hierarchy like really makes me happy. I like to see everything with its parent. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get started. I'm intimidated. I'm out of my element here, guys. I'm gonna be honest, but it'll be good.
Learn to love the scene graph, Josh. You got this.
I know. So let me I'm out of here first. This
Ooh,
was
while you are setting that up, actually, just a super quick one to throw out there because it's a
yeah.
good question for kind of kicking us off. Someone asked if the scene graph approach, like what is the big reason for you for potentially using it over traditional kit bash approaches for those that might be more used to how you were doing things before as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the easiest way for me to show this off is like literally just to do this. That's huge. Like just having buildings and stuff that you've already made and set up in your content browser, that not only in edit mode you're able to just drag and drop in, uh, you're able to spawn these at runtime, and then you're able to edit the entities and the components like at runtime, which is just stuff like you can't do otherwise. You can't access like meshes like that unless you're using like a hacky workaround with sequencer, right? So that's been huge. So there are organizational benefits 100%, and as we are like building, I'll point them out as they come to me, or workflow benefits. But also it's like heavily tied to like gameplay as well, that using scene graph unlocks. So quickly before I convert one of our other rooms, this was another room that we made that we were really trying to get to work. For whatever reason, we couldn't. It's like it was off centered. Probably, like I said, something I messed up in terms of the translation and the transform settings, and so we could never get it to like align properly. So we've had to scrap it for now. But the idea was to have two rooms and then one we made now and be able to switch. Okay, let's go back into our prefab editor here. And you guys are going to notice this gray plane here that's kind of in the way. That's like 0, 0, 0. And Evan, you think for now, can I move the prefab up?
Oh yeah, by all means.
On the way? All right. See, I got to get permission before I mess everything up. All right. There. I've moved it up. But once I'm done, we're going to move it back down because it's very important to our spawning mechanics that the prefab is at 0, 0, 0. You'll also notice in the prefab editor, there's no like real-time lighting. And so it's like super dark in here, even though I have it as a lit. If anyone has a solve for that they found, let me know, but I don't think that's a thing right now. Which might mean like as you're working as an artist in Scene Graph, you might find yourself saving and checking it out in the level just to get a better understanding of how it works with the lighting and the skylight. Like there's no skylight in here, and so yeah. Evan, we have a floating door here, by the way.
Yeah, that's one of the things about having to organize your hierarchy very intentionally. Because if you introduce rotations in parent objects, those can carry over to all the child objects. So you have to be very careful about how you set things up at each step along the hierarchy, because it could be very easy to get lost. Yeah. You have this massive swath of entities.
I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe it just goes to a surprise room somewhere. Or it could be like oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the name of it, but there is that very well-known estate that has doors that just go to absolutely nowhere or
the one in San Jose?
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's one of those. That's
Winchester Mystery House.
Yes.
Check it out, people.
That's a little brighter. I switched the previous scene to gray ambient, and at least it kind of is bright now. Okay. Let's start then with kind of tearing down a lot of this. I need to keep the doors. Those have to stay exactly where they are. But I'm gonna grab. Let's see. Yeah, we lost the door frame there. Oh, because I've got them grouped under this entity. Move the door out of here. That should be okay, Evan.
Yeah, that should be totally good.
All right. All right. Man.
It's not want to stay.
No, it doesn't.
It's the hierarchy, bro. I'm telling you.
It's the hierarchy.
I think that's going to be the number one lesson that we all take away
Oh
from this
yeah.
one today is pay attention to your hierarchies, friends.
Okay. Wait, I found it. Door frame. See, at least I named that one.
Proud of you,
There it
Josh.
is. All right. Thanks, guys.
It'll be an easy jump for people who have worked in, traditional modeling programs like Blender or Maya, or really just
Yeah.
anything that has an organized hierarchy like that before. But for other people who are mostly just worked in UEFN, yeah, it's a
Right. All your assets tend to be like named already, the static meshes. And so you don't, I mean, it can be good to rename them, but other times it's like depending on what they're named, you're kind of like, you kind of understand what it is. And
yeah. But when everything's an entity,
it does kind of complicate matters. Right. I'm going to let's make this a blue room, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go into here, environment, structure.
gosh, how did you get the assets that you're working with right now?
Oh yeah. So good call out. These are assets I got off Fab. But I got them off Fab for UE project and then migrated them over from the UE project. That's not reference content because right now you can't use, or at least we couldn't find a way to use reference content with Scene Graph. So I imported them through UE and they've been working. Also, going to call out, you see, I just made a new static mesh there. In order for Scene Graph to recognize that, you'll see like I'm trying to switch out the mesh component here. I can't. I have to build my verse code first.
When in build verse code.
Yes.
Yeah, any scene graph entities or any stack meshes or any custom assets you add to your project are going to appear in verse in your assets.digest.verse file.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do something like make a stack mesh, you just have to build code to actually get to appear first. And sometimes, and you might see this while we're working on these, but sometimes when you build verse code, you'll see a long list of warnings about, hey, this refers to an old or deprecated asset, right? That's because you've changed something in the prefab or something in the level. But when you build verse code, it should compile again. It should compile the prefab again without too many issues for you.
Run into some weird duplication on this wall.
Duplication still plays a little strangely. You might have to manually create some of them.
I like everything's stacked twice here.
Oh yeah.
Only on this wall though. The other ones are fine. I just picked a bad wall.
Good thing you notice now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna call it out because you're watching me do this all one by one. You can't right now group edit mesh components, and so I can't just select these and switch the materials at the same time, and so I'm doing this one by one. That's another quality of life thing that, I mean, hopefully we fix. I've given the feedback. But this part right here, like just dragging and dropping and it switches, that part I've been loving.
Really does make like innovating or just like making variations of something super quick.
Yeah. Like, look, I'm going to duplicate this and then I'm going to just drag in a new entity for a new mesh component there. And I'm going to name this 8.
Yeah, I like you're saying, anything that's as new as Scene Graph is, anything that's in beta or is not on full release, right? There's going to be pros and cons, bugs, issues, things that do pop up. So, especially while all of you are playing around with Scene Graph too, just kind of repeating the same point that Josh made earlier, please post about your experiences and feedback and stuff that you experience or may have on the forums so that it can get collected to just continue to improve on the tools and get them closer to the idealized final version that we all want.
100%.
Yes, it's very common for creators to sort of just like work around an issue, which is incredible. That's how we build things and get things done. But it's better for everyone if you can just quickly write it down, get it on the forums. It is seen, it is heard, and it is addressed. So just keep that notepad open.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even as like we've been building this project, it's like, oh, we'll notice a little thing, keep note of it, go put a bug in for it, and the team. A lot of these, honestly, the team's on top of and already working towards that like we've run into. They're really great and very dedicated to like building a tool that's going to be super useful and is already proven to be super useful in a lot of ways.
Mm.
I kind of like this yellow and blue thing.
Yeah, it's
We're hitting all the primaries right now. Yeah.
Get rid of the red, but I like the yellow and blue. That's working.
Not gonna lie, I kind of like it with the red, but the other room is red, so
yeah, I guess we should differ in some way.
good Crayola box.
Crayola box. I'm gonna. Okay, wait. What do you guys think? Yellow backdrop, blue.
Blue.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm thinking blue.
All right.
I agree.
So for people who might not have access to fab assets or pre-existing projects, what's a good way they can get some meshes and stuff to get iterating?
You can either make them and import them, or you can go get fab assets. Or again, like I said, just it can't be like reference content right now. So you should get them in UE and migrate them over. But you can also go make your own. You can't use Fortnite assets right now. Just those aren't static meshes, and you have to be using static meshes. But I mean, I really recommend you go and get yourself a nice library of custom assets that you can use for projects. Even just like this pack that I got, Day of the Dead, off of Fab, is like awesome. It's so many assets. Very easy to like make several different feeling levels with them.
I do also want to call out modeling mode in UEFN as a way to get some really quick starter stuff up and running. If you try and create entities that have the default mesh components like the cube, the cone, the sphere, all that, you can't change the materials on them. But if you go and create a modeling mode version of them, you can save that. It'll appear in your assets file, and then you can reference it as a mesh on your entities, and you can change the materials on those.
Yeah. Good example of this is I needed a piece here that was going to like fit perfectly, and the asset pack had nothing. So I very easily just loaded up modeling mode, made a cube, and then I did like I think it's called the mesh cut, where you can just like overlay another mesh. And so I just got a cylinder that matched this dimension, put it right through, did it the same on the other side, and then it did all the math for me, and I got an asset that like fits here perfectly. And I didn't even have to leave the engine to go make it. That was a very nice, like, yeah, a very nice moment. Yeah, it keeps duplicating, eh? Yeah, I like that. Maybe I have to shrink this a little. Or raise the ceiling.
So I have just some kind of general overview sorts of questions while you're focusing on getting the room set up for us here, Josh.
Yeah.
And for all three of you, of course. Any of you that wanna pop in and help, please feel free. But I'd love to just kind of talk a little bit more about scene graph in general and what it is, especially maybe for those who aren't fully familiar with what this is, what the process is for it, how it's different from building in UEFN traditionally and all those kinds of good things.
Yeah, I can take this. I'll give you the whole company spiel. But SceneGraph is basically the new system for UEFN. That's kind of the future system that we want to build the metaverse on top of. It moves away from what most people are used to in UEFN of working with creative objects, creative devices, actors in general, if you're used to working in Unreal Engine, in favor of a entity and component system, like what you can see on screen there, where every single object in the world becomes an entity, which is basically like a blank container. It's a box that has nothing in it. It doesn't even have a transform when it starts out, so it actually doesn't have a place in the world. But since every single thing is an entity, that gives you a blank slate to work from. And you can add data and behavior to entities with components like the mesh component, the transform component, lights, any number of other built-in things, custom verse code that you write yourself. There's a lot of different things you can add to basically customize and make objects in a compositional way rather than the way you're probably used to in UEFN of let's link all these devices together so I can kind of get the behavior I want. It gives you a much greater degree of customization over what you're making.
Well said.
Very well
And
said.
I know I'm like doing a lot of replacing mesh components right now. Give me a second and I can start making some from scratch. The light example is my favorite because it kind of shows off like the hierarchy best of components into an entity, into a mesh entity. Like it shows that off really well. I'm just gonna finish this base here though. Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, I am actually really loving the colors and how they're all coming together, to be really honest.
Really beautiful.
All right, Evan, how
Yes,
mad would
sir.
you be if I duplicate this wall?
Good luck. No, I think it looks good. Go for it.
All right. So if I delete every other wall except for their door, except for your door system, you'll be okay with that.
Probably.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Evan, where we decided to put you on hard mode.
It's okay. I have full faith in Josh to not break anything.
All right. I'm going to grab the door frame and get it out of here. Oh, that door frame's in the wrong spot anyways. That damn. bad. All right, and I'll delete this.
I'm trusting the process, and it's looking promising.
Yay. So far, so good. All right. Now I'm going to grab the group component for this wall. Grab the wrong one. Grab the master. Oh, I got something else on here, don't I?
I got an interesting question from chat here while you're getting the walls set up.
Mm-hmm.
The question is Scene Graph currently optimizing the meshes inside of the prefabs? As in, if a mesh is used inside of several prefabs and those prefabs are placed potentially hundreds of times in the scene, are they all instanced?
I believe the answer to that is not yet, but that is very, very high on the list of priorities right now. I need to look at the roadmap, but as of Unreal Fest, that's very, very high on our list of priorities.
Very awesome. Was a great question as well. Also, like I said earlier, if y'all have questions, don't be shy. Don't be shy with us. Toss them in chat there. We are happy to tackle some stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. This entity hierarchy got messed up.
Not the hierarchy. Our one rule. I mean, the title of these is Build Along. This is
You are watching me build.
yes. Like these are not we are literally building these along with you. This is the same process for everyone. So if there's moments where we all focus in and we're getting stuff figured out, that's just part of the building process.
Josh, do you have a idea of like kind of how this room will differ from what it was originally? Like, what's your vision here?
Well, my my vision right now is to fix our hierarchy. What the hell?
Can you walk us through that process a little bit? Just like what are your thoughts right now? What needs to be fixed? What are some things that maybe other folks could keep an eye out for if something similar happened to them?
I mean, keep an eye out. The idea is that this wall should be its own group, right? The issue is this one got brought in somehow. Very likely, it's just because we had a lot of people jamming on this prefab trying to make it work.
Got a little messy, but it's okay. Nothing that can't be cleaned up.
That's right. So I'm going to move this down here.
Even more so than regular UEFN, when you have a lot of people collaborating on one project, it's important to make sure you don't step on each other's toes when you're working with large prefabs.
All right, there we go. We're saved.
Yay!
Which you could say is good practice. It's all part of collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another general good practice tip that comes up from this whole process is when you're grouping entities other under other ones, like for instance, we have a group for the east wall, north wall, south wall, all that. Just be very careful on if you're doing anything with rotation or scale at any point during that hierarchy. Only the childmost entities should be rotated or scaled, because if you do it on the parent, it's going to rotate absolutely everything.
That is definitely good to keep in mind. We got another kind of large question that I'll toss out here for y'all. But someone's curious, what are the largest benefits of the scene graph system in your opinion? Would you say it's performance, optimization, versatility? And even if it's different between all three of you, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Take a shot, Evan.
Yeah, for me, honestly, it's the fact that I can run verse code from verse components, like during the game. So I can make platforms that spawn and then move on their own. I can make rooms that spawn their own enemies. I can do all sorts of different things that were either extremely difficult or impossible to do with verse beforehand. In a much more performant way, honestly. Performance is still one of the biggest benefits at the heart of scene graph and something that's going to keep being improved over time. But especially on the verse side of things, just being able to run verse code not have to set everything up before the game starts gives me a lot of freedom and flexibility to develop things how I want.
Totally. Everything's like kind of compartmentalized. Like it's really easy. Like this has this and this is the functionality it comes with. And once it's in, it just works. Um, Mine might be a little unique and different, but as someone who came from a different platform, the way Scene Graph sets up hierarchies is a lot more familiar for me. So I would almost say that if you're growing your team and you're trying to recruit from places that might not, people who might not be super familiar with UEFN, Scene Graph might help that transition process be a little smoother because I feel like the hierarchy system is just something that is a bit more common other places. How about you, Josh?
Yeah. Mine, I mean, I agree with both of you completely. As someone who doesn't use verse, like, doesn't use verse too much, I can't really like. I guess I can't really say that's my favorite part, but in theory, that is my favorite part. Is how you can use verse to tie it in. For me, won't have much effect. For everyone else I work with, totally. For me, I really like I said at the start, like I really like the prefab system. And of course I'm still getting used to like laying out the hierarchies here and everything. But I can see like even just using it, and I think this will be true for like a lot of you who are going to or who hopefully start using it for the first time. You'll be able to see like once you get your hands on it, it will be really easy to move quickly with it.
I think a good example is at Unreal Fest, Ronnie Hoole, one of the other people giving a talk, showed off how he converted a Space Invaders-like project called Fort Vaders from creative to scene graph. And it unlocked a lot for him because each of the different, y'all know how Space Invaders works, but each of the different like enemies that move back and forth, because they were all prefabs that had their own verse components and behaviors, they could be added to the scene dynamically. They could be removed from the scene dynamically. They had animations that played when they were hit that were independent of any other verse device telling them to do that. It was just the entities themselves. Same thing with the player, like little starship they could move back and forth. They could fire missiles. Those missiles, again, were their own prefabs with their own verse components, running their own code. Which is extremely hard to do with devices.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
So I'm going to take these two doors here. I'll move them into our front wall door master. That door should be set up now. Let me confirm this one's set up. Yep.
I have a couple of quick verse questions actually. If you don't mind me tossing those out.
Yeah, for sure.
That popped up in chat here. So part one of two here. They said, I used scene graph for the first time for the collision system. The way I had to do it was to await the collision event, then in the same tick, run the sweep hits to get the information. Is this the correct way, as I would think the idea would be to get all the information from a returned tuple when the awaits fires, if that makes sense?
I think, could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Um, So they used scene graph the first time for the collision system, it sounds like.
Mhm.
The way they had to do it was to await the collision event, then in the same tick run the sweep hits to get the information. And they're curious if this was the correct way to go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it depends on what your application is, right? If you're just checking whether two entities are colliding, you already have that info from the collision event. But if you're trying to say, let's say you fire a missile at something and you hit an entity and you want to do a sweep or do just an overlap and get all entities in an area that are affected by that, right? Then yeah, absolutely. Wait for the collision event to happen, then do a check the tick later and find out what was actually affected by that collision. So yeah, that sounds totally reasonable.
I'm curious from that person asking if the way they were doing things worked or if they were having any issues, or if it's more just like is this the most performant? Like, kind of what's the angle of said question?
Yeah, let us know.
All right, I'm gonna save this, and we're gonna take a look at it in game.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Whoops. Well, that looks great.
Yeah, it
Bad
does.
news, I forgot to duplicate.
Or no.
I mean, that's all right though. I should just be able to revert this, duplicate, and then revert that asset.
Well, while you're doing that, I have another question. Again, I'm really here to just every time y'all are focusing, I'm here to make your lives difficult.
People can't bombard us.
Is there any way to detect things like shots in entities so folks can create code triggered by projectiles? You kind of touched on something similar to this, Evan. I don't know if there's an exact way to do this in particular, but
Yeah, the answer to that one is not yet. There's still a lot of barriers, let's say, between the actor system, which is where, you know, bullets fired by player characters or player character collisions, or let's say vehicles running into a wall interact, than there is with the scene graph system, which kind of lives in its own bubble right now. But those things are being broken down slowly over time. Right now, bullets, definitely not. There are things you could do depending on your application. You could do a raycast from where the player is looking and find out if it collides with an entity to try and simulate that, right? Although if you had like a grenade launcher or something, it wouldn't work. But for hit scan projectiles, that might be an option for you. Right now, it's kind of working within the limitations, get creative within that. But like I said, those barriers are going to be broken down over time.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Look pretty good so far. There's obviously
Yeah.
some holes in the wall, but I'm liking the colors. So
Me
now,
too.
now,
Very Art Deco kind of.
now what we're gonna do, if I can open up the scene graph. Tab editor, there we go. Now what we're gonna do is, I'll switch. Set. There we go. Let's get rid of these. And we'll make something else from scratch here for our lighting. We use these in the other room, it's kind of tired. So I've got, I'll drop these. I've got a group entity. You'll see here, room interior. I mean, I deleted everything in it now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add our first entity. You'll see it's empty. There's nothing there. So I'm going to add a component. I'm going to do a mesh component. And for now, I'm just going to click cube here, and we can replace it. I'll pop open my content browser.
One thing that is kind of cool is any custom meshes that you have in your project, when you go to add a component, you can just search for the name of the mesh.
Yeah.
And it will pop up and get
automatically. If you know what you
added.
want, then it's like super quick. Gotta figure out a way to light this room up. I'm thinking it'd be cool to have like smaller boundaries here, something like out of the ground.
Ooh.
Maybe something like that. Change the color on these to honestly whatever. Have the master material, but I think yellow's working.
It does work, yeah.
All right, so then now that we're starting from scratch, it's very easy to start naming things. So this is going to be, say, light base. All right, then I'm going to add a new entity underneath it. This one, I don't think we're ready to just throw a light on yet. It doesn't really have anything for a light to attach to. So we'll add another component, another mesh component. I'm also just gonna do something placeholder for now. Move it up.
It's a little castle.
And maybe we'll just grab another one of these, like shrink it down.
I'm seeing the vision.
Yeah.
The pillar of pillars.
The pillar of
as
pillars,
chat has decided.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, this material won't change for me. Weird.
Maybe that's
Anyways,
just how it's meant to be.
maybe it really wants to be a white pillar. That's fair enough. We'll call this pillar. And then we'll create another entity. We'll grab another mesh component. Now it's small. And let's check out what lights we're working with here. This awesome asset pack. So that's the wall lamp I was using in the other ones. There's also this one. It's tiny.
Oh, it's kind of fun though. I do like it.
Fun. Let's drop this. I like that. Maybe we do 2 of those. Like one.
In both directions.
Yeah.
I agree.
Add another entity there. Actually, we can just duplicate it. You guys understand the flow now.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. All right, that's awesome. We'll name this light 2. But I mean, the material's emissive, but we're still not getting any actual light from these mesh components. So now what we're gonna do, what you could do is go and you can add the light directly. That's not what you want to do though. I learned this. you want to, once again, make another entity. Actually, let's name these light mesh.
Mm.
And then on our other entity, here we'll do a sphere light. Yeah. Warmer. Intensity, like 2. You won't really be able to see it in here, but you'll see it once we get back to the viewport.
How does that feel, Josh? Like kind of building something where you can't see the lighting until you go back.
Um, it feels. I mean, I've given the feedback to the team, and they're aware of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think ideal scenario is like you have like real time lighting in here, and it looks like it would, because as an artist, it does. It does make you kind of have to save and go back and see how it looks and go back and adjust. So hopefully that's something we can smooth out. All right.
A workflow that can be helpful for people as well, by the way, is you don't have to work fully within the prefab editor. You can build out a prefab in a level and then save it.
Yeah.
Or rather, build out what you would save as a prefab in the level and then save it as a prefab.
Yep.
That's kind of what I was doing initially. So I remember once I did start using the prefab editor, I was like, oh, where'd my lighting go? But yeah, both work.
Quick question for you, Josh, just about the lights.
Yeah.
They're curious why not add the light component to the same entity as the light mesh?
I totally could. So what I would have done had I not had two lights so close to each other, is, I mean, in theory, you'd like actually put the light with where the light source is coming from, and then when you want to move the light source, that moves with it. If it's a part of the master entity, and not the light mesh, you'd move the light mesh, and the actual light wouldn't move with it. But in order to save on performance, there's not really a need for both of these lamps to have a different light, and so I've just kind of put it on the one. I guess what would actually like probably be best here is if I then did like a meshes, and then threw my lights in here, and then also
begrudgingly organize.
Yeah. Or else I'll just like light master, lamp master.
Oh, but if I came in here and tried editing this, it'd be so easy. I'd know where everything is.
Exactly.
I'll say there's another big consideration. So if Josh adds the light directly to the mesh, you can see the pivot point of the mesh is at the back near that semicircular hanger. And that's where the light component will be centered on, right? So it's not actually in the middle of the lantern. And so if you have larger, more complex objects, I think in the scene graph prefab template in UEFN, or sorry, the scene graph starter template that you can load up in UEFN, we have those lamppost objects. But the root of their mesh is actually at the very bottom of the lamppost. So if you added a light to that, it would just be down here on the floor rather than actually on the lamp.
Yep.
So separating out entity responsibility like that, again, lets you position things how you want. Gives you a lot more customizability.
And you'll see, like, I just duplicated that, and oh my gosh, would you look at that? They fixed it already. What a great team.
Whoa.
Okay, well, like last week, when you duplicate something that had a bunch of names, it all just revert to entity. So, thanks, scene graph team. Now they're all named. All right. I'm gonna just close out some of these gaps here, and then we'll hand it over to Evan to turn this into a mode.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I think I
All right.
might miss the light that the holes were making just a little bit because it was kind of magical
It was a
looking.
little
Yeah, see,
aesthetic.
I'm not gonna mess with Evan's doors. I've learned not to mess with Evan's
Yeah, no, don't
doors.
touch the doors.
That's why I'm not filling those holes.
That looks pretty good in level, though.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Still got some holes, but
Great work, Josh.
should be good enough. All right, Evan, you can take from here.
All right. Just checking your changes and kick it over to me.
Oh, yes.
While we're swapping over, question for y'all. Someone's curious, is adding entities heavy on performance? Can we add a ton of entities freely without worrying about performance, or what are some of the limitations here?
Probably mostly depends on how many components each entity has and like what data is in said components. I think if you just have like a bunch of empty entities, like Evan mentioned, they don't start usually with a transform even. So it's purely going to be like how much data is each entity actually storing. If you've got a ton of components in a ton of entities, I mean, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably when you'll start to see some performance issues.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. The goal is to have entities be as lightweight as possible. Right now, they're even um, they're even heavier than we want them to be. But again, it's something that we're going to keep working on over time. But if you just add a blank entity to the scene, right? Since it's not actually parented to the scene entity, and sorry, I probably should have covered that before. Every entity in your scene is grouped under this one root entity that you can't really see right now, that sits at the very top. But when you add an entity to the world, it's not actually parented under that. It's not parented under that simulation entity. So when you create an entity, you have to go and parent it under that to get to actually show up first. So there's no harm in actually creating a bunch of entities, adding components to them, but then not adding them to the scene until you're ready. And I will actually show off a tiny bit of that with my code. And I think I'm actually ready to share if you want to kick it over to me.
Awesome. There we go.
All right. So there's going to be a lot to explain, but I'll take it step by step. So, like Josh alluded to, we had this idea of making a dungeon crawler, right? We wanted it to be, okay, what can you show off that's cool from scene graph prefabs, right? What kind of thing can a prefab be? It could be a room in a dungeon. You know, you go up, you interact with the door, you spawn the next room in the dungeon. It can be some random orientation, some random configuration, that sort of thing, right? So I'll show you what this looks like in level first. We'll get to the good stuff first before I jump into really heavy on the verse code. Show you how we did it.
Yeah.
So this is a basic starting room, right? Spawn here with the player spawner. This is all just gray boxed, made using meshes I made in modeling mode. Just to keep it super easy, super duper simple. We go to the end of the room, and there's this floating entity here. This has a interactable component, so you can interact with it, right? And this mesh component that you can't collide with, you can just walk through. But it's just going to show you where the exit of this room is, but it's also going to be where the entrance of the next room is. So I walk up to it, I hit interact, boom, next room spawns, right? So now we have this tiny little room. Go up to the next one, boom, next room spawns. Keep going. Up, this one turns left. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Oh, that's so fun.
Right? And by going like this, you're just continually creating new rooms, adding them to the scene. Here's a T-junction. We could go either way, right? We could go that way. We could go that way. Just keep going, right? All these different prefabs. And this is just like the most basic model of it, right? All I did was make a little square and put entrances and exits on them. But you can fill this with whatever you want, right? You could put enemies in it. You could put traps, moving platforms, puzzles, any sorts of thing. So it's a lot, but I'll show you how we did it. So me end the game here real quick. So each of these different rooms, we start here in this 4x4 one, is just this basic little prefab. I have this prefab fort size room. This is the most basic one I can show you. Like I said, it's just made in modeling mode. And you didn't see this one, but this is another invisible cube that just tells you where the entrance of this room is. Red's for the entrance, blue's for the exit. And what's happening when I go and interact with that blue cube in each room is we spawn a room randomly from an array of rooms. I have this cone up here, kind of acting as a pseudo-verse device sitting in the level, but basically it stores a reference in this dungeon manager component to all the different rooms that could be in the scene that I want to have randomly selected from. It picks a room from these, spawns it in the scene, then to actually get that room into position, this is the cool piece that we had to unlock for us. What we're doing is we're spawning this whole room in the scene. We're then immediately creating an entity, moving the entity to where the entrance is, right? So we make a blank box, we move it to right here. We then parent the entire room under this new anchor entity dynamically, and then move the anchor to where the blue cube is in the previous room. So on your screen, it looked instant, right? We just spawned it in the right position, but what we're actually doing is spawning something, parenting it, we're manipulating the hierarchy in UEFN dynamically, and then moving that entire thing into position. So I also have a couple different variations, you know, rooms that turn left, rooms that turn right, key junctions, a 4x4, that sort of thing. Super easy variations on the same concept. All right, let me show you the verse code for this. There's going to be a lot to talk about here. So before even starting, it's kind of important to consider, you're working in scene graph, right? You want things to be independent from each other. You want entities to be responsible for their own data, their own behaviors. So you start out with a lot of questions about how you want to structure this content, especially because you're not really working with a verse device in this. So I started out by defining, okay, what's an abstract idea that we can do? We have an abstract dungeon room. What does each dungeon room have? Well, whether or not it contains enemies, right? The physical bounds of the room. I'll show you what this is used for later, but basically I'm just saying how far it extends in all three directions. An array of enemies that should spawn in the room. And then this function we're using here to construct and return the room. You might be asking, I have that array of different rooms that can spawn, right? But how am I actually defining what room spawns from what? Like I said before, prefabs show up in your assets.digest.first file. So each of the different prefabs we made show up here. So here's the fort-sized room I made. Here's Christian's room. Here's the 3x3, all these different ones. And here's the ones Josh made, the prefab room 1, all that sort of thing. There is a caveat though. So if you want to reference these prefabs as editables, either in your verse devices or in your components in level, you need a way to get a direct reference to this particular object in your assets file, right? And the way we're doing that is, like I said, I have this abstract dungeon room, and I'm subclassing from it for each of the different prefabs I have. Each of these different subclasses just has a function that constructs and returns an option that contains the particular prefab that we're trying to build, right? So I have a simple room, it makes prefab fort size room. A simple dungeon room L, it makes prefab fort size room L. I say fort size room, by the way. I'm gonna use that word a lot, but I'm just saying that it's stuck to the grid. It's 128 by 128 right. by 128 in every direction. So that's how we define all the rooms. Then I went and built this room spawn component because I really want it to be player walks up, they interact with something, next room spawns. I didn't want it to be on a timer. I didn't want it to be all at once. I want it to be something that was dynamic. So we have this room spawn component. It sits on the blue cube in each of the different scenes. Sorry, on each of the different blue cubes in the scene. And what it does is when it starts simulating, it checks whether there's an interactable component on that entity that it's attached to, and subscribes it to this on room spawn signaled function. And the reason I'm using events here, because this on room spawn signaled is a event, On-room-spawn signal is a function. I will signal an event later. When you're dividing out entities and their responsibilities in scene graph, think about the dungeon room you're working in, right? Is it the room's responsibility to spawn the next room, or is it like a manager's responsibility to spawn the next room, right? You wouldn't necessarily want to be playing a game, you step on a switch, and that switch is the thing telling everyone else, hey, go do this, hey, go do this, hey, go do this. The switch should talk to some manager that's actually responsible for overseeing what's going on in the game, right? You're dividing up responsibility based on what's appropriate. Some of it's vibes, some of it is just good programming practice, but it's kind of a bit of a shift that you have to get used to in scene graph of just letting things be responsible for themselves. So even though this is called a room spawn component, it's not actually the thing spawning a room. So when someone interacts with the interactable component, this on-room spawn signal function gets called. We check if there is a dungeon manager in this global map that I have set up. I'll show you in a bit. This dungeon manager component up here is just referencing this global weak map, so I can reference it from anywhere in my session. We check if we can get it. And if we can, we disable interactability, we disable the mesh, and we then signal this event. So we're saying, hey, I'm the room that we need to spawn from. Hey, dungeon manager, go spawn a room, please. We'll jump over to the dungeon manager now, but I also want to call this out right here. You'll see this a little bit. You'll see this room entrance component, room parent component, enemy spawn location, all these things. But they don't have anything in them. Why is that? Well, some of you might know that we have the tag component as a thing, right? You can tag entities with a particular tag, and then you can search for them based on that tag. But the tag component is still an experimental. So I want to show you guys a way to do what I'm doing now without having to rely on any experimental features. And so you can do like a primitive version of the tag component by just making a pretty much blank component class that has a particular name. So room entrance component, right? Because this is a component you can search for, you can basically use it like a tag. I hear that folks want to make the text bigger. I will make it bigger. Let me know if that's better. I can keep zooming in. We'll just keep going.
Until it's just like one line.
Yeah. All right. A lot of preamble out of the way. We will get to the actual dungeon manager.
It's important. It's important context.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's important context, and especially with scene graph, there's a lot of moving pieces when you're playing with verse stuff, even more so than what you're used to with devices. So it's important to be able to visualize it in your head and just get everything sorted.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of things happening here, but we'll go through it step by step. This dungeon manager component sits on a component in the level. In a sense, it almost acts like a verse device. It's just a thing in the level that's managing other things. But I don't have to treat it like a device. I could add or remove this from the scene. I could modify it dynamically. I could do a lot of different things to this particular entity that the component is sitting on. So we have this dungeon manager component. I can't show it off to you today, unfortunately, because there's a bit of an issue with how debug draw is rendering. But previously we were able to get debug draw to show off, while I'm doing overlap checks, while I'm doing sweep hits, let's do debug draw to show off exactly where that's happening. But I can't show that to you today, but if you see debug draw channel, that's what's happening. There's the room spawn event we described earlier. And then here's the array of dungeon rooms that we can spawn. So on begin simulation, so when this thing starts simulating, we set this component in the global weak map so that all the other different components in the scene can reference it and talk to it. Then we have this manager loop. Now, what this manager loop does is it just loops and waits for the room spawn event to be signaled. This could be signaled from any component, anywhere, any room spawn component anywhere. It just says, hey, dungeon manager, go spawn a room, right? Once that happens, the event itself actually signals the entity that signaled it. That was a really weird sentence, sorry. The event itself carries the entity that signaled it. So when I'm signaling the dungeon manager, I'm also passing it the entity that's happening from, which is that exit to the room. So once that happens, we go and try and spawn a room. So spawning a room is also broken into a couple steps. First, we got to get the simulation entity that That's the top level entity in the scene that everything's organized under.
Mm-hmm.
We then pick a random room in the rooms array, right? We can spawn anything we want. Once we get that room, I have this check here in this other function called will not overlap. And this is the cool thing. I can't show you with debug draw, but I can explain to you how it's working because the code is still going under the hood. So will not overlap is a function where I am checking whether I can actually spawn this room. I look ahead of me, I use the bounds of the room I defined earlier, and say, hey, would it be okay if I spawned it here? It won't overlap with anything, it won't collide with anything, right? So there's a bit of math and also a bit of transform logic happening here. As you might know, when working in UEFN, we currently have two different types of vector threes, two different types of transforms defined. One in the Verse spatial math module, one in the Unreal Engine's temporary spatial math module. If you ever want to force Verse to pick a particular one, you can do it with this syntax right here. Just in parentheses, type the module name, put a colon, and then put the type. And so that way you can specify which one you're using, even if you have both modules.
Wow, I was having so many issues with that. Thank you.
No, I know. I even had a creator reach out to me recently asking how to do that. And I was like, I know, it's really, really, really annoying. But hopefully this can disambiguate it a little bit. So, okay. We have this entrance transform. That's where that blue cube is. We make a box, a collision box, that's based on the bounds of the room. We then have to do a little bit of math to make a displacement for it. We don't want to simulate the collision right on top of where the box is. We want to actually push it forward. So we do a little bit of math. I add just like a little bit of extra displacement here, just to make things easy. We then make the whole transform, the translation, rotation, and scale where we're simulating from. I draw it with debug draw. And then I do this find overlap hits at the transform, simulating that collision box. Now, one thing that you'll find out when working with scene graph is a lot of things like overlap hits, a lot of things like finding every entity tagged with a particular component, return generators. They don't return arrays. So if you want to convert from a generator to an array, because again, since it's a generator, you don't know the size of it, you can't get particular elements of it. If you want to make things easier, you can just do something like this, where I have this generator of overlaps, I have this array of overlap hits. I just set the array for iterating through each of the overlaps and then just returning it, and it just populates the array. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. I know it's actually
got
not
all that,
easy
Tina?
peasy.
I think I got all that.
Hey, everyone got it right? Yeah, we can move on, right? No.
No, this is so nice, yeah, because the generator doesn't really let you like find indexes and stuff, right?
Yeah, the generator's a lot more limited because you don't really know what's going to be in it, right? It could be absolutely nothing. It could be a million different things.
Yeah, it's mostly like just for regurgitating.
Yes.
Here it is. Yeah.
So once we have that array, we're just going to return whether or not there's anything in it, right? If there is something in it, that means that I don't want to spawn the entity. It means it would collide with something.
Mm-hmm.
But let's assume there isn't. So we go all the way back up. Since we know it's not going to collide with anything, we're just going to get the prefab for the particular dungeon room. We're going to add it to the scene. So right here, actually, when we do this new room, chosen room construct prefab, we made the entity. It's in memory. Like, it exists. But it's not in the scene. It's nowhere. So we have to actually add it to the simulation entity to put it anywhere.
Got it.
Then I'm using this other function we're going to jump to actually position the room. So I told you earlier kind of how it works. We are going to find the entrance of the room. This is kind of the thing I was talking about earlier. The room has one entrance, but because we're finding the entrance by checking which of the entities have this room entrance component on it, we're getting a generator. So we don't know whether there's 0 things in it or a million things in it. So we actually have to iterate through each of them. So even though this logic looks like it shouldn't be repeated multiple times, I'm going to have to do it in a for loop here to show this off.
Okay.
So once we have the entrance, we make this anchor entity I talked about, add it to the scene. Then I go through each of the entrances, but again, we're only going to do this once because we're only making one entrance. I'm going to move it to where the entrance of the new room is, add the entire room as a child of it, and then move it into position. And it will just pop up there. Great. That's it. It's pretty simple. IMO. Now I have other logic here for spawning enemies, and I'm gonna try and get that to work for y'all. I'm gonna try and show that off. But it follows kind of the same thing of when I spawn a room, I have these blocks that are tagged as like enemy spawn points. And I can either move the whole guard spawner there, or I can wait for a guard to be spawned and then move them to it. But
Evan,
that's enough yapping.
I have
Christian.
a quick question for you. I'm just curious, like, just specifically with the room spawning, is there like a certain part that really was hard to get through, or anything that you were just kind of like, oh, that's interesting, that like people might be able to shoot past with your knowledge?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, the part that took a really long time, honestly, was just getting the anchor to work. It's pretty simple in terms of code. And by the way, I will be posting all the code here in the EDC snippet repository after this stream, just so y'all can have it and just start testing with it. But yeah, figuring out how to do the anchor correctly did take me some time, but it's been such a massive, massive time saver for me now that I know it. And then other than that, honestly, this sounds really lame, but what took me the most time was just figuring out how I wanted to structure things. Like I could have just written the code and had it work in some like haphazard way, but figuring out how I wanted to structure all the different moving pieces together, yeah, it took me a while because you kind of have to swap from that UEFN mode of thinking to the scene graph mode of thinking. Yeah. I'm like, oh, should the room be responsible for this? Should the manager be responsible for that? All that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right, my yap session is over. Let's try and get Josh's room working.
Here we go. Might need to, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna sync. We have time for questions, by the way, while this happens.
Awesome.
But
well,
now,
that was.
I was just gonna add, if Evan said he's gonna post this code to our snippets repository. So this next part is going to be very important because this is how you implement, your prefabs into said code and throw everything together. But the nice thing, I was going to say, the nice thing about scene graph is like, that's kind of like, yeah, you make the prefab and then, you can just plug and play into, verse that's written for to spawn said prefabs.
Yeah, I was going to say that these sort of like programmer art prefabs that Evan made would be super easy to convert into like something more polished and beautiful. It's kind of great for like doing the level design first and then taking that level design and just kind of replacing the meshes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly encourage just gray boxing out, especially in scene graph. I highly encourage just gray boxing out your levels.
Yeah. Whereas imagine like if we weren't using scene graph here trying to do this, replace, all the work Evans did with like some other group of static meshes that we like, it'd be a whole other beast.
Yeah, go talk to your artist and have them yell at you for a while.
Yeah. All right, let's see it.
All right, so room 4, the nice room Josh made for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna move this back up to 0 just to make things easy. So to actually get this to do what we want it to do, we need to define the entrances and the exits in the same way that we did for the other rooms. So I know over here we have our entrance because there's no door. So let's see how you organize this, Josh.
So each door should be under a door master.
Yes, including the entrance.
We might need a new entity called door master there.
All right. We will.
There's no doors.
Yeah, you're right. All right, I'll start with an exit first because that'll probably make things easier.
Why have door master if no doors, Evan?
I don't know. All right, so we have a door master here. Has the room spawn component, has the interactable component. Notably, you don't actually need a mesh component for something to be interactable. I will be 100% honest. I'm not 100% certain on the specifics, but
It just spawns the interact right on the entity's origin.
yes, but I don't know how big the bounds are.
Right.
Yeah. So this wall should already work. Has a room spawn component. And again, because Josh copied this from the other room that we made, it carried over everything. Oh, where's this door? Oh, here it is. This one's actually the same deal. One important thing is the way I'm spawning these rooms is actually based on the orientation of the entity that has the door spawn component. So just need to make sure that this is pointing, yep, it's pointing in the right direction. And same deal here. Yep, this one's pointing in the right direction. So all we need to do is make sure that we have an entrance somewhere.
All right.
So this just needs to be changed to a room entrance component. And that might actually be it, believe it or not.
Well, that was easy.
All right, let me save this. I'm waiting for it to save. I'm not just pausing for dramatic effect. I need to move the master back down to negative 256.
Good call.
Why do you have to move it down to 256?
So, partly, hold up. Well, once this stops being, it's loading. There we go.
No worries, no worries.
Okay. So with these fort size rooms, because these entrances and exits are actually parented directly below the prefab, this is the only offset I have to account for is this exit and entrance offset from the prefab itself. So when I spawn a room right, I just move the anchor to where this is and then move the entire room with it. But because this is a more complicated hierarchy and because these door masters are nested a lot more deeply, we're kind of creating the offset manually, right? We're putting in the negative 256 here. So it looks wonky in the editor. And by the way, you can construct a room where you don't have to shove everything into the ground.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, we're just really we've just done it so that if Evan, if you click on the prefab base there,
I hit save, so now I'm waiting for something.
We're waiting.
Yeah,
we're having another dramatic pause.
There we go.
There we go. So so now that he's got the prefab selected, you'll see that the origin for it is like right in the center of that door. And so we've taken the easy way out of just spawning based on origin. But with the system Evan did that was working on the gray box ones, like it's automatically detecting, you know, and spawning on that box. And so theoretically, like you could have two storied rooms. They don't have to be the same height. The prefab origin can just be native in the center of the thing, and it does the math for you.
That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So while I go and get this added, we have plenty of time for questions. What I'm going to have to do is, since this is a new prefab, I actually need to go and create an entry for it in the list of dungeon rooms. So I'm going to add this in. Oops, sorry. I'm being very silly. All right. 4. It's going to be 4. So now it's in code.
All right.
And once that compiles, I'm just going to get rid of all these and add prefab room 4. Because we don't have time today to really like fine tune this, I am going to keep the actual bounce check disabled here. Um, but yeah, we're just going to rip it.
That's
I'm going to
how
hit
it worked
save.
with the gray rooms.
It works with the gray rooms.
Works with the gray rooms.
Someone dropped in chat, if I understood scene graph so far correctly, this could be useful in tycoon games to build various parts of buildings. And I would say yes, I think you could do a very similar approach to kind of what Evan's doing, but rather than push button for next room, you push button to build in tycoon. What do you guys think? They agree.
Yeah, no. 100%.
All right,
I was actually waiting for Josh to answer.
It's a showdown. Who's going to answer first? Who blinks?
What was the question?
Mostly just using scene graph for tycoon games. So I would say like big yes. I think that's a good place to use it right now.
No, tremendous. Like, honestly, tycoon games are the thing I've thought about the most next to dungeon crawlers.
Yeah.
For scene graph. Because, like, you could have a printer that prints out individual objects that have their own code that manage themselves, right? You don't need to do these really super complex steps. You can just let things manage their own behaviors. I think it will really revolutionize a lot of things in that. Yeah. I'm kind of really excited to see what y'all make with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious what other genre types you could also see this being implemented with, even ones that you might not first guess they could be, but would be a really interesting use case for it.
I think you could do like a lot of cool. I mean, we're seeing now like our random generation in a dungeon crawler, but it's not unique to like dungeon crawlers, right? Like you could have open world stuff that like has randomly generated buildings, prefabs, events, even like you're creating these pockets of like content that then you can sprinkle in really cool ways across like any genre. That's what I keep thinking about is like reusing things, having like randomly generated buildings in areas or caves in like an RPG world, stuff like that.
Yeah, I get like landmark vibes where you could like have rarities for different landmarks, and then like the really rare landmarks have their own functionality. Like there's a super rare chance a volcano spawns, and that volcano will erupt, and might be getting a little scope creepy, but bear with us.
Yeah, and that's certainly what you can do now, but certainly thinking about the future, itemization as a thing on the roadmap that we have, custom items, that's going to unlock so much in the RPG space. I really want people to make more RPG type games. Like those are my favorite.
Yeah.
So when you can make your own custom items, that's going to be crazy. Scene Graph's going to unlock a lot for that.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what people make because already it feels like their imagination and creativity is boundless. So once the tooling gets to where they just get to run free, I'm so excited to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, and I think like it all goes back to the workflow stuff is awesome, but I think we're going to see as players, you're going to see the biggest change in just how dynamic games are going to become. The players are never going to know that you've been like creating prefabs and grouped entities with different components. That all is great for our side, like engineering the games, but for players, like the fact that the world around them is like gonna start becoming a lot more dynamic with things happening at runtime, with your own custom devices that are getting made. That's where like we're really gonna start seeing a lot of like polished mechanics versus games that kind of just set everything up right at the start and then you play through it.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, I was also going to say, certainly as creators, by the way, in the future, we're going to be getting less devices coming out and more components. Instead of making, this is the new device for the new season, it's going to be, this is going to be the new component for the new season. So it's a system to get used to now because you're absolutely going to need it later.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like kind of adapting in some of the smaller pieces as it goes on is just a good approach to it anyway, because it's constantly fluctuating and changing and adapting. So that's a good piece of advice I think to take for most of the concepts.
Yeah.
There's a really great question here. I don't know if any of you will have the answer for it, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it is a good one. Folks are curious if you think in the long term, if it's an aim or even like just a potential that people could put things like scene graph prefabs on Fab or have it as like its own downloadable thing that people could just pick up and grab, put into their own islands, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, we have discussed that. That's something that's been forecasted. There are a lot of caveats, a lot of things to figure out before that system gets implemented.
Mhm.
But it is eventually the goal to have creators be able to, hey, this is my really cool, like, tycoon game printer prefab, or this is my really cool, like Christian said, volcano exploding prefab, and put that up as a whole asset on Fab.
Yeah.
That's a long way away, and I make no promises,
Yeah.
but that's absolutely a goal.
But like philosophically, that's kind of always been the goal. Like even like going back to like verse, it's like verse was made to be very shareable between projects and kind of like work no matter the context. And now, I mean, obviously there's caveats, but that's the same idea with Scene Graph too, is it's built to, you know, eventually be shareable and work between your own projects, other people's projects. Yeah, it's going to take time to get to that point, but that's where you totally start seeing the possibilities.
So start learning now.
All right, how are we looking, Evan?
We're looking good, although I may have made one oopsie, but I'll show you when we get
let's
in.
figure the oopsie out.
All right, so we can cut back to me.
Great, there we go.
All right.
What was the oopsie?
Let me push verse changes here. Once I can find my editor window. I think the oopsie is how I have organized things hierarchically for the doors.
Aha.
And that is my bad.
See, guys, hierarchies are hard.
So I do have this
Always
line here that removes the door from its that removes the like block you interact with from its parent, and that should remove all of its child entities as well from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not sure if this is actually working the way I want it to. So I can show you. I can go up, interact, boom, spawn in the room, easy. It's nice. You did a good job, Josh.
Let's go.
Yeah, very aesthetic. But then I go to the next one, and I do spawn the next room, but I forgot to remove the doors.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see it over there.
You can see it.
Yeah, you can kind of see it, right?
See, the gap in the door was purposeful, so we can see the next room.
See that it's working.
It's all part of debugging. Boom.
Yes.
It's all part of debugging. And it may be that this call to remove the door from its parent just isn't really working properly. For the moment, I can just fix that by, you know, turning these to be uncollidable and uninteractable for each of the doors. And this one too. And then I'd save that and then push the changes. But you can see the vision. You can see the idea here.
We got time. Push the changes.
We got time and more questions.
The people deserve to see room spawn.
They deserve to see your room spawn, Josh.
Exactly.
All that work. We gotta see the culmination.
Are the red rooms in there too, randomized?
Oh no, I only put yours in. Do you want me to put the?
Man, that'd be cool.
I mean, I already pushed changes though. I'll see if I can fit it.
Yes, awesome. In the meantime, we do have some more questions for y'all, so it works out. There is one question they're curious about because we can obviously see the plane where the origin is at. They're curious if you can make that transparent or if that's just there by default.
I couldn't find a way.
I believe it's just there by default.
I think it's just there by default.
Like it doesn't even show up in the outliner.
Right. Yeah, it's just like kind of referencing where the floor is. But
Right.
when you are making stuff that's like that you want lower than 0, it can get in the way. And so we've relayed that feedback. You guys can also post on forums. Luckily, the scene graph team is like, as we found out by that one bug I mentioned already being fixed within, the last time I tried. They're actively working on making quality of life changes and big product changes.
Yeah, all the luck to the scene graph team. They work ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
A lot of the struggles with scene graph are things that you guys don't see. A lot of stuff that involves changing the underlying way that Unreal Engine works, trying to create this entirely new system. So it's a lot. I'd want to give major kudos to the team for what they've accomplished.
Yeah, and the issues that we did run into, we hit them up, we chatted about it, and they were just so nice and quick to respond and help us out. So if you guys are watching, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
Hopefully we can relay some of that knowledge to you guys watching.
Yes, for sure. Which, speaking of which, I did see a couple questions about if the code snippets of this will be available later. Yes, they will, as Evan said earlier, which thank you so much for doing that. That's going to be awesome. Another question I've got here for y'all. It's it's a use case one. This is kind of interesting. Can you use verse to set up the collision or visibility only for a specific team or player if you're doing something like a versus island?
That's a really good question. I don't know about visibility. I'm going to check something for collision real quick. But that's a really cool use case. I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah. I I want to ask them a follow-up question of why, because I want to know what's prompting this, because that is a very, very interesting question.
I'm guessing like they're trying to figure out how to stop, Team 2 from entering Team 1's spawn base without having to use devices.
Oh, yeah, that would be an interesting use case too. I need to know. We need to know. What are you doing it for? It's gonna drive me mad. There's so many cool possibilities.
Yeah, I think right now, unfortunately, you cannot change it on a per team basis. You can change the collision profiles of objects, but you can't do it per team yet. It can't act like a barrier device just yet.
Yeah.
Hmm. Maybe one day though. That's where something
Exactly. Like that's kind of the goal, right? Is that like instead of having to rely on device functionality to like make or to like draw conclusions like that, if team 2 you can't walk through, uh we open that up into components and you can make those devices yourself. Like what we did with the light there. Instead of having to use the light device, you can now use the light actor, and we could make changes to those properties at runtime.
Hmm.
Particle system component is in there too. Similar idea with like the VFX device.
Another question I've got here. This one's kind of a big one, so take your time if you need it for the answer. But they're curious, what are the maximum limits of prefabs and entities, or if there even is one?
I do not know what the maximum limit is. Now, granted, you can just keep spawning stuff, right? I don't guarantee your island's going to actually have any performance or, be playable if you do that, but you certainly have the ability to.
Mm. I'm
Yeah.
curious too if they're asking it from a perspective of like just how many you can keep making repeatedly, or like per prefab or per entity, just what is what is the maximum of what you can do? I'm curious.
I haven't found the limit yet, I'll say.
Yeah, I'd imagine, and I actually have no idea, but I'd imagine it follows like a similar philosophy to just having Fortnite props or meshes or whatever. Like we have size limits in place, and we have memory limits in place based on performance on all the different platforms. And so you'll probably be limited in terms of those metrics and how well it's performing. But I wouldn't imagine it's like spawning NPCs where like you can only have 9 at a time or 90 at a time.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely no limit. But again, I think you really can just keep spawning them until your game kind of melts. So do with that info what you will. Be responsible.
Dangerous information we're releasing into the wild.
Don't crash, people.
Please don't. But
think
if
of
you
all
do,
the
don't
platforms
blame
that
us.
players are playing on.
Yes, and how they vary wildly in capability.
Test games on
Please
your
consider.
Yes, please test games on
Yeah.
your phone.
Yeah, tangent, but I've actually found that so useful. This has nothing to do with the stream now, but when you're making stuff and like you need another player to test, I just got like my personal account and I load it up on my phone and I hop in and then I test with 2 players, and it's awesome.
It really is, I think, like a phenomenal way of testing just because like that is going to be the lowest of the low. So even if people aren't playing on their phones, if it can run on your phone, that means it will run on everything else.
Love that. I'm also a firm believer in picking one of your friends who has to be on call at all times. At any given point of the day, they just know they can be called upon.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
excited
baby.
we got Christian on my team now. It'll be midnight at Christian. Can you hop on Fortnite for a sec? I gotta test
Yeah, I
something.
got you. I was on anyway.
Yeah, see, right? It's perfect. Awesome. Let's see. What are some other questions here? Making sure I'm going through. A lot of these we've just kind of been answering as we go through, which is awesome. Oh, someone's curious what the rolling back bit was in the log. If I can speak. Goodness, I'm struggling. They're
Oh.
curious if it's just because transacts function the print is in, or curious about that.
Yes. So I don't remember which one it would have happened with. It might have been with spawning enemies, but when you try and teleport, it's for either me trying to teleport the guard spawner or the enemies themselves to a location. I think I still have the offset from where they should be teleported to wrong. So it's trying to teleport them into an entity, failing, and then it rolls back that entire thing.
Got it.
Also, the bounds checking, for checking whether I can spawn a room. Everything in that will also be rolled back if that fails. So,
Got it. How's Fortnite looking?
Actually, it just came back.
Oh.
Fortnite may have crashed there. By the way.
Yeah, pushing changes didn't actually take that long.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I think this is evidence that Josh, you're a little bit magic, because you asked about it and it happened. So
Yeah. I had a feeling. I've pushed changes enough to know roughly how long it will take. I can take one look at a project and determine how long pushing changes is going to take.
2 minutes, 37 seconds. He's done it before, and he's been pretty close.
I love that. Building the sense, the push sense.
I just had a quick question that I wanted to get to that I saw. It says, have you ever tested any LLMs and how accurate is it at writing verse? I just want to give a shout out to the docs team and go over to dev.epicgames.com/documentation. There is a developer assistant that they released for everyone, and it has been such a phenomenal tool for me personally as someone who is learning verse. So highly recommend it. It is really helpful. And it probably does verse best.
Yeah, awesome. And I think it always comes with the caveat, of course, of, test the code. Don't just trust in it, but it's a good place to start and get like a at least a baseline understanding of maybe where you can start with some of these.
Yeah.
We can kick it back over to me if you want to
All right, let's
see what
it.
happens. We'll see what
it.
happens.
No, we can't. There
All
we go.
right.
Got it pulled up.
So Josh added room 2 back in. So here we go.
Nice.
There we go.
full
There's room
screen?
2.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. We keep going, and there's room 2 again. And there's room 2 again. By the way, this is a 50-50 chance. So, and there's room 2
It's
again.
it'll
Come
happen at some
on,
point.
come on.
Heads. Tails? No,
Oh,
heads.
Evan, we're going to the casino.
We're gonna keep going.
Oh my
We gotta
God.
keep going until it happens.
It's kind of amazing, actually.
Where's this random number generator?
I don't believe this. There's no way.
Okay.
Oh, you want to know why there's no way? I think I put the same room in.
No.
You had us in the first half.
Oh God, I did, didn't I? Yeah. Oh no!
Oh!
No! Oh my God!
Oh,
Oh,
Literally worse luck. What?
okay.
we did it.
We did
Doors.
it.
Okay. The luck evened out.
That was
after
crazy then.
How many rooms? I don't even know.
That was at
Like
least
10
8.
rooms.
Yeah, I think that was. I'd have to go back. I think it was 6, if not more. Yeah.
Is that 3.125? I don't remember my serial odds.
0.0156.
It might be. But yeah,
I'm
there we
just gonna
go.
say it right.
Wow.
I may have messed up this door. We won't talk about it.
No?
But
All right.
Okay.
yeah, you can just keep going.
That is
Now
so
we're on the
awesome.
left. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
I may have forgotten to remove the collision for the doors.
the
Yeah, I was
doors!
gonna say,
The
well,
invisible doors!
But
That's awesome. Thanks for hooking that up, Evan.
you're welcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Great work.
That was amazing. Oh my gosh. That was such fun, honestly.
Graph
Being able to
fun.
walk through. Yeah, that makes me want to get in there and explore and build some stuff up and see what all can happen. This was in particular a very fun use case of it, I think. Like you're saying, that kind of dungeon crawler usage of it is just really, I don't know, that random chance generation, it really does kind of just spawn something inside of me where I'm like, well, I have to keep exploring now because it could, who knows? Is it the same room 6 times?
Yeah.
It could not be. We
Well,
don't
and
know. I have to keep going.
We were talking a couple weeks ago when we were planning this, and I think if we had more time and the stream was a lot longer, like turning this into like, yeah, you have like chest rooms. We had like trap room ideas, moving platforms, because you can do that with scene graph animation. There are a lot of ways you can take it, and then obviously spawning enemies, which Evan actually got working on his gray box. But yeah, there's like a lot of cool ideas that we would love to take this. But for a 2-hour stream, this wasn't bad. Set a room up and got the logic all working together.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd rather hand it off to you fine folks, and you guys do better than me.
Yeah, let's see what you guys can make with this.
You crushed it, Evan.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Well, thank you.
I do want to, yeah, kind of reiterate on the point. This was 2 hours, and we got to watch you basically make the beginnings of a dungeon crawler just within that time limit alone, which is kind of crazy, especially with the historic length of game development. So, I mean, be proud of yourselves. That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully, like everyone watching can see like the benefits of scene graph there and how fast we were able to like craft a prefab, piece it into existing logic, and you guys can start thinking about how to implement it into your own games and your own future games.
Yeah, definitely. Very excited to see what folks make and put together, and feels like the possibilities are endless, you know. Really excited to see how folks run with this and what they end up making. But with that, I want to give one last opportunity for our wonderful guests, which again, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there any final things you want to make sure we cover, or do you feel like you hit all the main landmarks there?
I think so. Scene graph is in beta. Stick around. More cool things coming.
Basically, what Josh said, it's going to continue to get iterated on and improved over time. It's kind of the future foundation of working in UEFN. So, good to learn now. Please keep giving your feedback. A lot of people really rely on that. And yeah, hope to show off even better and cooler things next time.
Yes, remember you're all problem solvers, so please help us make this tool better for everyone. Share all of your feedback on the forums. It will just make it better.
Yeah. The We Try Scene Graph Again stream is gonna be crazy.
Comeback's gonna be crazy, Josh.
Oh yeah.
Round
Scene
two.
Graph 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today, to walk through this and to explain all the different pieces and aspects as you were going through. This was a lot of fun and was very, very informative. So I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. Thank you for being here. And also, of course, thank you everyone who came to watch the show as well and participate and ask questions and be part of the audience. We do this show for you. So thank you for being here and building with us and having a good time. It wouldn't be what it is without you. If anybody hopped into the show partway through and you missed anything, because there was a lot to take in, well, too bad. It's gone forever. No, I'm kidding. We post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel, both at Unreal Engine and FN Create. So it exists in many places. You can always go back and watch it at your leisure, or if there's even just something you want to go back and review, you can do that whenever you want to. No worries. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you come join us on the Epic developer community. We have so many great things. It's been mentioned a couple different times here throughout the show, but we have code snippets, we have the forums, we have the documentation where the wonderful new AI assistant also lives. So go check that out again on the Epic developer community. There's also just pretty much anything you could ever need, really, in regards to most of the Epic tools and products there. So it's a good place to be if you want a good baseline to start. There's lots of tutorials by staff and wonderful community members, pretty much anything you need. So go check it out if you haven't already. But with that, we'll wrap it up there for today. One last big thank you to everyone, and we'll see you next time on the next build along. Bye, everybody.
Later, everyone.
Bye, all.